Bitches and gentlemen, it's showtime! I'd like to welcome you.
Hello there, welcome to the Mainly Eminem show. This is a broadcast that we are doing live on Twitter and live on YouTube as well. So this is a show that we're going to discuss a couple of things that has been happening over the last week or so, Eminem related. So we have a few guests that are waiting to join us as well. We have Jamie, we have Ross, and we have Blake. So just bear with us a few seconds. We're just going to get everyone on. Jamie, can you hear me?
All
All good. And Ross is just coming in as well. Ross, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, so we'll start as we mean to go on. So we're going to talk about Eminem's interview with Paul Rosenberg. That, first of all, part one came out on the 7th of September. So we'll start off with that first of all, and what it meant. It was obviously for Curtain Call 2, and they were discussing all Eminem's albums from Relapse all the way up to Music to be Murdered by 2. So the first topic that they decided to talk about was, of course, Relapse. So Relapse came out in 2009 and was very successful around the world, but there was something that Eminem wasn't entirely happy about, which was the accents. So we're going to discuss with Jamie, because I know that you, like myself, are huge on Relapse. So Jamie, just want to speak to yourself, because during the podcast they had to clear a few things up, because a lot of fans were hoping that there was potentially more Relapse music and that Relapse 2 would have possibly have happened in the future. But of course that was both rejected by Eminem and Paul Rosenberg. So Jamie, what are your thoughts on the fact that both of them have basically confirmed that Relapse 2 will never happen?
If I'm going to be honest with you there, Dan, mate, I cried for a few hours because you know I was pioneering for it. I was all for it. But like I said on our Relapse episode that we done, I said if there was to be one in the future, I don't think the accents would be as harsh, and that's basically what he said about Relapse. What he didn't like is how harsh the accents were. So yeah, they've drawn a sort of a line in the sand on Relapse 2, but I think if there's anything moving forward that kind of takes us back to that era, like I said previously, I don't think the accents will be as hard. It will be sort of the same rhyme patterns that he was hitting the same pockets, but it was a bad day for me, mate. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was heartbreaking.
But there was also a moment in the interview where Paul said there isn't enough music for it, but then Eminem goes on to say, well, there is still music available, but the fact is he feels that they're not good enough to come out in the future. So is that a bit disappointing that he basically confirmed that there is still a good amount of Relapse era tracks, but the fact that they'll never see the day of light?
I guess so, but then again, if he feels they're not good enough to release, then would we really want to hear it and be disappointed? Do you know what I mean? I think from my point of view, I'd like to hear it just because I'm a fan of Relapse. But if he's not happy with it, like we've seen, he's not going to release it. I know there was a few songs that leaked that probably would have been on Relapse 2, and there was one that come out more recently, I think a few years back, called Nut Up, which again I didn't mind it. Again, I didn't mind it, but I wouldn't have wanted a full album of that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? But it's a bit bittersweet. Obviously, you've got to take it from his standpoint. He's not happy with it. He's not going to release it. Do I think maybe it might be a bit of reverse psychology and they're trying to throw us off the scent? There's that 1% chance of hope in me that they might surprise us with something. But yeah, you've just got to respect that he's not happy with it, and that shows, I guess, him growing as an artist. And like we said previously, he was, learning to rap again in the Relapse days, and obviously it's a big achievement for what he'd done for somebody coming off what he went through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ross, we'll speak on your thoughts about the fact that Relapse 2 probably will never happen. What do you think that it probably is right, and there's no point in the fan base hanging on to this bit of hope, and that we should just really move forward for a totally different album in the future?
Yeah, I think that was their subtle way of saying, please stop talking about it because it's not going to happen. I mean, like you said, Eminem said at one point, oh no, there is probably enough music. And then Paul asked him, well, what your fans are demanding you to release it? And he basically said it's a setup. If I release it because a few fans want it, the rest of the fans, or not the average listener, I might say, someone who's just, oh, Eminem's releasing a new album, I'll have a look at that. They're going to go, what the fuck is this? Especially in I think in this day and age. But that's just my opinion on it. I do really like Relapse, but I think they've made it clear that nothing's going to come of that. He can still go back to the accents and enjoy it, but I don't think he wants to go back to that whole mindset that he was in. Like you said, it was just flying out of him, and none of it really made too much sense. You just have to piece the best of it together.
Yeah, so I mean, there definitely is a resurrection of the accents to a softer tone nowadays. Of course, Framed was part of Revival. Discombobulated was part of Music to Be Murdered by Side B as well, and then most recently we had Is This Love. Jamie, what was your thoughts on Is This Love when it dropped on Curtain Call 2? Was it just a good kind of throwback? The track was recorded in 2009 in Las Vegas, and the reason it wasn't included in the original Relapse was, according to Eminem in the recent podcast of Rosenberg, the accents weren't strong enough. So what's your view on Is This Love, Jamie?
Listening to it again before we come on. Yeah, I like it, man. But again, it's one of them things that comes back to the style of it. I'm surprised to you that it didn't.
Yeah, sorry, Jamie, you're just breaking up. You're just breaking up a little bit just with the audio.
Hello, mate. Sorry,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, mate. Yeah, it's for me, it's a great song because it's nostalgic. Do you know what I mean? It takes me back to them days. But I was surprised to hear that he didn't re-record the verses. I think he's probably gone back and tweaked it a little bit with a few ad libs and that. I think it's a good song, man. I think it's a good song. It's upbeat. It's got that Relapse feel to it, and like you say, the accents aren't as strong, which sort of intertwines with what you were just saying with the Framed and the Discombobulated. I know they're obviously completely different eras, but I enjoy it, man. I can't complain about it.
Excellent. So during we done a podcast show just a couple of weeks back, and we dissected Relapse quite a lot on the show, and we did talk about the potential that Relapse 2 was, and of course Relapse Refill. So for those that are interested, that is available on streaming websites such as Spotify and Apple Music. What we did at the time was ask the fans via Twitter, did you enjoy the accents on Relapse? And 86% said that they did enjoy the accents. And then we asked another question, would you want a Relapse 2, or maybe not necessarily a Relapse 2, but would you be up for more accent Eminem-based songs in the future? And I think over 800 voted on this one, and 87% said that they were keen for it. So the good thing is there is still an appetite for those sort of accents as well. Obviously, the chances of getting a Relapse 2 album now is pretty much dead and buried. but the fact that he has done Framed, Discombobulated, and Is This Love over the years suggests that we probably will get more of those vibes in the future. So that was Relapse. That was the base that they discussed from that album. But then they moved over, which was the next album, which was Recovery. And they were saying how the process and the accent change, the first track that they recorded in these sessions was On Fire. And that was, of course, without an accent. And then through time, it just gradually morphed into the album that, of course, became Recovery. So, Blake, I'll ask for your little thoughts on this as well. For Recovery as an album, how do you view it now, over 10, 11 years on?
What, Recovery?
Yes.
To me, mate, it's my favourite album he's ever done. So for me, it's perfection to me. I mean, like the tribute song to Proof, Spacebound's probably the most underrated song that's on the album or that he's ever done. Obviously, you had Not Afraid. I understand a lot of people don't like it. I think that's still a pretty good song. Cold Wind Blows is a fantastic opening song. To me, mate, it's definitely, I would say it's top 3 Eminem albums for for me anyway. But like I say, it's my favourite. So I don't know. For me, I mean, there's definitely songs which are on. I'm not 100% on, but at the same time, it's just fantastic to me.
Yeah, so they were discussing Recovery as well during the time, of course, that they had Rihanna on Love the Way You Lie, which was written by Skylar Grey at the start. But they also, which is quite interesting, they touched on another song that was never included in Recovery, probably because it leaked, but that was the track Fly Away. And they were trying to get Rihanna for that song as well. So anyone that's listened to Fly Away,
can I just say, Dan, Fly Away is mine and Ross's favourite song. It is, honestly, it is the greatest song he never released.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. It's my favourite lead track, definitely. I don't know how, like personal opinion wise, I don't know how that didn't make the cut, but Won't Back Down did. I'm not a massive hater of Won't Back Down, but I was just another heavy rock song that I was probably could have done without. And when I then heard Fly Away was released, I was like, well, why didn't you put that on there? Like,
it was a shame.
That song is just different.
It was because it was section 80. The forum, I think originally it was called Studio Leaks. I remember there was a guy, I think his name was Kulo, and he, for whatever reason, had someone in the inside that was feeding him unreleased tracks. And I think, from memory, it leaked after Recovery was released. So I don't think that it wasn't included because of the leak. It was just a track that unfortunately never made the cut. But Ross, what could you imagine? I mean, you know that song yourself, but could you imagine Rihanna on that hook? Like, surely that's an automatic banger for chart success.
Like, again, it's that they've got, like, Eminem's good at these like duos where he'll partner up with like an artist and then he'll make a couple of like good consistent songs with them. And I think Rihanna is one of them. I think The Monster was really good, but I don't know, Fly Away would have been incredible with her on the vocals as well. And it probably would have been a bit clearer. When you go and listen to it online, it's not the best quality. It's a little bit grainy. But I can imagine if it was actually just mastered and fully released, it would have been probably one of the strongest songs on Recovery.
I agree 100% on that. And I believe it was Just Blaze that produced that as well. Because he produced quite a few tracks on that album. I think it was No Love and possibly You're Never Over. Don't quote me on it, but I think it was those 2 tracks anyway. So basically, On Fire was one of the first tracks that was recorded for the Recovery sessions, and the album was basically done at that point. Before Love the Way You Lie came, because according to Paul on the podcast, it was right at the deadline, and Paul, he showed Eminem the track, because at the time it was Skylar Grey that done the chorus for it, and it was Alex the Kid that produced it. And yeah, as soon as Eminem heard that track, he was like, "Nah, we gotta put Rihanna on this song." And I believe that she was doing a world tour at the time, and she was over in Dublin, and that's how that came about. They managed to get in contact with her, and she recorded the verse then and there, and then a couple of weeks later, it came out on Recovery, and the rest is history pretty much. So I've got another couple of things about the Recovery era that he mentioned in the podcast show was that he did take a lot of inspiration from Lil Wayne and Drake at the time as well. He said something, I think it was round about like the wordplay. He says, wordplay is back, what I get involved. And yeah, it's good to know that he's seen those two round about 2009, early 2010, and he's like, right, I've got to get involved in this. And yeah, I mean, it probably is, it will go down as a classic. It probably already is a classic. It is very close to diamond status as well, I believe. I think it is roughly 8 or 9 times platinum. So that will be another diamond certified album in a couple of years' time. So there was that. Then we'll move over to the Marshall Mathers LP2. It didn't really go properly in depth into that one. They were just talking about how Bad Guy was one of the first tracks that they done, or they recorded it as well. And of course, Rick Rubin's production, which was very hip rock, as you would say. There was a lot of rock influence on the album. I've talked to Ross on that. Marshall Mathers LP2, looking at it now, how do you see that as an Eminem album, and what did you make of Rick Rubin's production on it?
See, I know I mentioned earlier I wasn't a fan of Won't Back Down, but I actually liked the production on Marshall Mathers LP2. I think Berserk I didn't like at first. I found it a little bit whiny. But then in the coming years, like now, especially recently, like when it comes on, I'm like, no, I kind of really appreciate this now. Like, I personally think that he fits quite well with the rock sort of like production, but sometimes it can be overdone and come across a little bit like it's attacking your ears. So, like, I personally think Marshall Mathers LP2 was probably the peak of his rock instrumentals. Rhyme or Reason as well was probably one of my favourite samples he's had. I thought that was one of my favourite songs I heard. That was a classic for me off that album straight away.
Yeah, and then when you look at the features on that album as well, Jamie, like you've got Rihanna, and then you've got Kendrick Lamar, like you generally couldn't get, you still couldn't get anyone as big as that on your album nowadays. But the fact that he had two of them on it, the same record, was pretty something special as well, wasn't it? Sorry,
Yeah,
Jamie.
yeah. Sorry, mate. Yeah, sorry, my phone battery come up. Yeah, the thing, that Kendrick Lamar song doesn't sit well with me. I don't know what it is. I think because if you put Kendrick Lamar and Eminem's name in a hat, and then you just automatically your mind starts to think of what song they would make, because it was so completely different to that. Especially, I guess the beat. I don't like that song. I'm not going to lie to you. It's obviously a big feature, yeah, Kendrick Lamar. But yeah, that Love Game song. It's not the one for me. I really like the album though. I really like the album, but I don't like that song.
I'm on the same boat as you. I just think they could have done that so much better than what it was. It's great to have the two of them on a track, and it has to happen again in the future.
If you imagine them two on a track like what him and Joyner done. Do you know what I mean? Like that would just be insane. Them two going at it, like yeah. I've got that song stuck in my head now. Like just she doesn't love. Like it's doing my head in. It's actually doing my head in right now.
The chorus isn't good. I mean, the verses are okay, but it's just, it doesn't really mean much. No. So yeah, I'm definitely hoping in the future that the two of them do collaborate again, and let's be honest, it's going to be better than Love Game, even though it's not been done yet. But you can just predict that it will be a lot better.
Because like I said, you have so much expectation of when, especially of them two. Do you know what I mean? I just expected so much more. I saw it and I was buzzing because Recovery obviously had the Little Wayne featured in it, and that, like, No Love is one of my all-time favourite songs. I think it's a
agreed.
fantastic song. And then you go on to the Marshall Mathers LP2, you've got Kendrick Lamar. You think, oh mate, his first song with Kendrick Lamar is going to be sick, and then it was just, it's disappointing for me, that one.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think as a album on its own, it's probably, since you could sort of say the hiatus of like 2009 onwards, it probably is at the top of the ranking in terms of
it is
fan
a great
opinion,
album, man.
critics as well.
I think Bad Guy, like, again, I know I said No Love's one of my favourite songs. Bad Guy as a song in total is just incredible. Like, I remember listening to it for the first time, and I thought, like, I didn't quite like, obviously with the whole Matthew kidnapping scene, and like, I didn't like how his voice wasn't always on the beat. Do you know what I mean? I didn't think his voice fitted that beat. But then when the last part of that song comes in, that is just spine tingling. And then, like Ross said, Rhyme or Reason, that's one of my favourite. Like, that sample's a great sample. They use Berserk's Grown on Me over the years. I think that's a fantastic song. Evil Twin you've got on there. What else have you got on
Legacy.
there? Yeah, you've got a lot. There's a lot of good songs on there, but I need to go back and re-listen to that album. Actually, I've not listened to that one for a while.
Yeah,
Evil
another
Twin
thing.
was one I completely forgot about as well. Sorry to cut you off there, Danny, but
No.
that one is, like, I think for me, you know how he always says he's chasing that I'll go back to doing your old stuff. Go back, and then when he goes and does his old stuff, he gets called like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. It's the modern age. You need to grow up a bit. I think that was probably one of the best examples of going back to the whole proper Slim Shady era and doing it so well, and it still holds out to now. I still probably put that on daily, I reckon.
What's that? The album?
No, Evil Twin, like,
Evil
as a
Twin,
song.
yeah.
Honestly, that the bar about the top 5.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's nuts.
But I think the Deluxe album, the bonus tracks on that album is really good as well. You got the one with Sia, which is that's a really good song, as well. The Beautiful Pain,
Beautiful Pain. That's
yeah,
because that there was 4 or 5 tracks from the
Beautiful
deluxe side
Pain,
of
Wicked
things.
Ways, Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is lyrically an amazing song.
Yeah, I would say that, like, from the album as a whole, looking at it, like, Legacy is up there with one of his best ever tracks, and I was so disappointed that it wasn't included in Curtain Call 2. I thought that, I know it wasn't a hit, but there was a lot of tracks on Curtain Call 2 that wasn't hits either. So
yeah, he said he recorded that one first, didn't he? In the interview, that was the first one he recorded for that album, and that's how, a few songs later they started to realise that's the route they wanted to go down. But Legacy is an amazing song, like from the storytelling wise as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, they decided to discuss Hell the Sequel, which was Bad Meets Evil, Royce da 5'9", Eminem, and they were just discussing how they needed, they were looking for a big track to go with the album, and Royce had a track that he thought, potentially Bruno Mars could jump on, and they got in touch. Similar to the Rihanna story, that they got in touch with Bruno Mars people, and he laid a really good chorus on it, and I think he enhanced the production a little bit on it as well. Blake, in terms of Hell the Sequel as well, as a Bad Meets Evil album, of course, Fastlane is on Curtain Call 2. How do you describe that album now, looking on, or the EP, as you would say?
To be fair, mate, when it came out, I really enjoyed it just because, it was just those two, like, some of the tracks were insane. Like, I really enjoy songs like Above the Law. Obviously, you've got Lighters with Bruno Mars on there. You've got Living Proof. Obviously, you had Fastlane, which is probably the most well-known song off there.
Reunion is a really good track as well.
Yeah, I would definitely, if obviously I know there was talks a couple of years ago about another one happening, and if it came about, I'm all for it, because the first time round it was so well done. Like the beats were good, the rapping was good. To be fair, it reminded me of how they used to flow like back in the day. I mean, obviously, I know they're both different now. They're older. They've changed how they rap slightly, but there was no having to force it. It just felt like it came natural.
Yeah, because I think at the start they were just recording songs for either an Eminem album or a Royce album, and then just as the weeks and months morphed into each other, and they started recording more, then they kind of went, well, we can actually make a project out of this and put it out on Shady Records, and they did, and yeah, it was a really good album, and similar to the kind of Relapse 2 thing. There's fans out there that are also wanting a Hailey sequel part 2, or not even that, but just another Bad Meets Evil album. Ross, do you think we'll ever see another? Obviously, they have collaborated over the years with Caterpillar and like On Music to Be Murdered By as well. You go and learn. But do you see another album from the two of them in the future?
I don't know, because I remember when you listened to that Paul pod, at one point he basically justified it by saying, "Oh, every time you guys collab, I see it as Bad Meets Evil," which I do get, but I don't know if that's almost like not an excuse, but a reason as to why they don't want to market a new album. I'd like to see it, but they're also again one of those duos that when they do come together, it hits everyone's radar and it is normally pretty good. I remember when Caterpillar released. I didn't see anything but positive feedback about that song, which is quite rare to see when you go online regarding Eminem.
That's true. That is true.
But yeah,
So
I don't
yeah,
know.
just need to see what happens in the future, I suppose. But I mean, there's definitely the two of them definitely are going to collaborate again for one or the other's albums anyway. But yeah, it would be possibly good to see that again in the future. Right, we'll move on from that. So after they discussed that, they started to discuss revival. So this is quite an interesting subject, especially in the fan base as well. So I'm quite interested to hear the three of you, your views on this album. So we'll start off with the fact that the track list did leak a couple of weeks before it was officially released. But I think from memory, Walk on Water came out before any of that. And of course, that was a track that featured Beyonce. And I don't think it was well received at the start. Thinking now, probably a lot of people's opinions have changed on it. But we'll start off with Jamie. First of all, I don't know if you did see the track list before the album came out, but if you did, what was your thoughts on it before when you seen it?
Yeah. Of course, I saw it. I did. I was just happy he was releasing music. I'm not one of these ones who, I get all the arse if he's not got, a rap collaboration on an album. I was just, I think we need to appreciate the fact of the age that he's at. He's still willing to release music, and I was, because it was, I think it's like 3.5 years, wasn't it, between albums? So it was quite a long stint away. I was excited to listen to new music. And like I said, I've always been an advocate for it. I think Revival's his most underrated album. Them last two songs, Castle or Rose, like In Your Head, Believe. Yeah, the production on it isn't great, and there's a couple of songs on there. I even like what's that rock song?
Heat.
Is it Remind Me?
There's
No,
Remind Me,
not
and then there's also Heat.
Heat. Is it Heat? Yeah, I don't mind Heat. I don't mind that song
Yeah,
at all.
that's actually alright.
But I don't like the Skylar Grey one because that's clearly a throwaway from Recovery, because you can tell by the tonality of voice. I don't mind the hook. I don't like the verses, and that Pink song, I don't. Yeah, again, it
not really an Eminem song, is it? It sounds as it should be a part of Pink's album.
Yeah,
instead.
exactly. But I think like he discussed, that's obviously the reason why he doesn't do campaigning promotion anymore, because of the bad reception it already got from not obviously from the track list releasing. And I remember, funny enough, the Chloroseptic song 2 Chainz had spoke previously that he had laid a verse on it, and then the track list was leaked or released, whatever, and 2 Chainz tweeted because he saw that his version of Chloroseptic wasn't on the album, and he done like an angry face. But
Yeah,
again, Chloroseptic's a good song, man. Chloroseptic is a good song. It's just because he's rapping differently, and he touches on it in the interview. He says, he's got to keep up with how the modern sound is and see if he can do it as a competitive nature. He's trying something different, but then also on the flip side, he's talking from the heart on a lot of them songs, a lot of things that he believes in personally. Which like fuck it, stand up for what you believe in. Do you know what I mean? Like I was just appreciative for him releasing new music. That's it.
yeah. So when they were discussing the album, Eminem gave his thoughts on it, and he said that the fact that the track list leaked early, he sort of compared it to a movie trailer coming out that didn't look that good. So then people started, shitting on it, and then that person being forced to then go and see the movie, whereas they're in that negative mindset already when they're thinking this isn't going to be good anyway. And I think he is right on that, because as soon as the track list came out and people did see Kehlani, no disrespect to any of these people, because they are really good like pop acts, but you look at it, Kehlani, Pink, Skylar Grey, Alicia Keys. I think a lot of people straight away were just thinking, "Oh, come on, man! Like you keep on praising LL Cool J, keep
Yes,
on praising
I
J
get
Cole."
that. I get what you're saying there, but then on the same sense, me personally, if I see a movie trailer that I don't like, I'm not going to go and waste my time. I don't care what anyone says to go and watch that movie. So clearly, people give that much of a rub, like to criticise him. They've seen this track list. Oh, it's shit. It's that. Oh, why have you got? Was it Pink Beyonce this and Kalani that? What he says on that one.
That's right.
Why he got all of them? But then they still take the time out of their day to go and listen to it, and then obviously obviously entitled to their opinion. Do you know what I mean? I completely understand that. But if you don't like the looks of it and you don't think you're going to listen to it, don't listen to it. It's
Yeah.
honestly, no one's forcing people to listen to it. Like you say, with the whole, I understand what you're saying with a movie trailer. You're already going to get a bad perception of it. But if you don't like it, don't go and see it.
And
I think I'm just black and white like that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and I also think what didn't help it as well is there was quite a lot of like large hip hop fan accounts on Twitter that were like, "Oh, this is going to suck," and then someone else would post, "Yeah, this is shit," blah blah blah. And then it kind of just spiraled out of control. So then when the album did come out, it was already like people were already in that negative mindset, which didn't help. But that is unfortunately the way that social media is these days. And that is how it happened. So Ross, I'll get your thoughts on Revival as well. Looking back now, it's approaching 5 years this December. How do you think, is it aging good? Is it okay, or like what's your thoughts on the album?
I think it's definitely aging better than some of his albums. Like I would rather probably, personal opinion, go back and listen to Revival than go back and listen to Encore. But that's just because I don't know. I thought it was. I don't know. I think I was with Jamie when he said, if you don't like something, don't go out and spend money on it. At the same time as well, I don't know if it's just because I was an Eminem fan and it was popping up on my social media more, but I think Revival was one of the first albums that like hip hop Twitter really shit on. And I think again, people got quite carried away with like they weren't really paying attention to the content at all. It was more the delivery, which I can understand if you're a hip hop fan. But I do think as well. There's a fun little fact actually about "Walk on Water" and the last song. I can't remember if it's a Rose or Castle. I can't remember what one it is. But
Yes, I was just about to say this,
the
Ross.
first, the
Go on,
first
say it. I
lyric,
was just about to say it.
the first lyric of "Walk on Water" is "Why are expectations so high?" And then the last lyric of the final song is "Now I know." So it's like if you
Yeah,
didn't
that's right.
clock that, that means you haven't listened and clocked the whole album
It's a
whatsoever.
masterpiece. That's why,
It's
Ross. It's
so
a
clever,
masterpiece.
and
Yeah,
people will just shit on it because it's popular to shit on it. I think in this day and age, and I think that's just like you said, the curse of hip hop of hip hop news online and fan accounts and shit. Like, I think people are just bitter, and it's because he got I don't know if it's because he reacted that maybe people think it's better to shit on it now. But either way, it gave us like Kamikaze and everything else that's come afterwards. So I'm grateful for it. I'll go back and listen to it.
Blake, your thoughts on, like, in my opinion, probably two, and I think even Eminem agrees, two of the best songs that he's done are on that album, Castle and A Rose. So Blake, what is your thoughts on those when it came out at the time?
Well, to be fair, I was quite jammy. I managed to get it because obviously it got released a day early in New Zealand, so I managed to download it and whack it on my phone. And then obviously when it came out, I purchased it properly. But I gave it a full listen to on the way to college on my bus. And do you know what? Like, the whole album's very disrespected, in my opinion. Like, it's extremely disrespected. But those two songs, like, I don't know, like, it's such an insight to how he was. Obviously, I know the first song was a tribute. Well, not a tribute, but like letters that he wrote to his daughter. And then, the second song was how close he was to death. And without trying to sound soppy or daft, but mate, that second song, crushed me a little bit. I felt like I could have cried for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Like,
probably the most emotional that he's
yeah,
came across
the
in some of his
storytelling
tracks.
and everything like that. It was so well done. It was so well put together, and especially 3/4 of the way on the song where he goes, "I'm rewinding the tape," and then it goes back to the previous song. And then he wraps it up. It's like, it was just incredible. But I think the issue is with Revival. Obviously, the track list didn't help, but that BET freestyle that he did against Trump, that was in my opinion, that really catapulted the downfall with that album. Just because he
Yeah,
basically
I agree
told
with.
that, because he told, without directly telling people to their faces, like individually, he basically told such a large audience of people, "Fuck you if you like Trump. I don't want nothing to do with you. Bollocks to you. I'm not interested."
Yeah,
You know,
the thing is on the album that it probably wasn't best received in the States, probably because of that and the album cover as well. But like over in the UK, like it was pretty well received. Obviously, the song with Ed Sheeran River as well was. I think did it get to number one, or if not, it got
Yeah, that
pretty
went number
high.
one. That went number one.
So my view on the album is that it's getting better. Like at the start, I was in that negative camp when I was thinking, "Oh God, what is this?" But 5 years on, it is aging a lot better. There's still a lot of tracks on the album that I'll not really listen to. I appreciate the song "Offended" that he done about police brutality, racism. I absolutely understand the full subject matter of that and the lyrics and the rhyming, but the production on that song is just, my opinion, it's not good enough. And I think that was also, a lot of people thought that as well. But the album as a whole, thinking now, yeah, it's probably is still the kind of lower end of my like favorite albums. But the more years it goes, it is getting a bit better. And yeah, I think it is severely overhated, as they would say. And I think that in maybe 5 or 10 years' time, the view on the album will definitely change. So yeah, that's that. Well, I don't know if you've got any other
well,
little
to be fair,
revival
that
bits.
Untouchable track which you've just mentioned,
Mhm.
obviously, I definitely agree with the production of it could have been a lot better. But I think a lot of people that got angry about it, it's because it's not their issue. Like, without getting into like a
Yeah,
race
I agree
discussion or
with that.
anything like that, the people that got really upset with it were predominantly white people. And like I say, I'm not trying to get into a race discussion, but if you watch people like Stevie Knight, or if you watch other reactions, I'm sure
Yeah,
No Life Shack did it as well.
Steve
I
Knight
mean,
loved it.
yeah, like, I remember the Stevie Knight one. So he was left speechless, and he was there like he's never ever come across or seen someone who hit the nail on the head so well,
Yeah,
considering they don't live the life, considering that they're not black, and to a lot of people they wouldn't have lived the life that some black people in America do. And like, from that community, I mean, a lot of people did get upset by it because they were sort of there like it's not his place to really say, because even though he did have a bad experience in the area he grew up in, Like, to a lot of people, it's a black culture
But
issue.
then
You know,
you say that. Obviously, over here we don't deal with that shit over here. Do you know what I mean? We quite well, obviously not as bad as what it is over at the States. And like you say, that you just said, people say it's not his place to say. But then if a black artist touches on it, nothing happens. Do you know what I mean? Because it's come from the biggest white rapper
yeah,
in the
he's
world
used his
to ever
platform so
live,
well for it.
and he's an advocate for that. Do you know what I mean? That's why, like, he's doing a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't. People hate, like, people give a fuck to give a fuck. Do you know what I mean? They're always searching for things to pick out, which is it. It annoys me, but I can also understand why on earth it gets so much on his tits, because he's doing it from a good heart. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It-
no, absolutely.
It's like you say, like, just really quickly with the whole he might not have gone through it. I think surely he must have seen his fair share of bullshit, having like been around, like, you know, artists like Dr. Dre that have a history, or, you know, like he was with D12 quite a lot. Like, he used to go out to bars. He said, like, he was always on and ready to get involved. Like, I definitely think the reason he has a place to say it is because he has only done positive things, or tried to do positive things for, like you said, the black community. And I think, like you said, it is a big fuck you to half the people that supported Trump. But at the same time, I think when you go back to that, why was it such a good thing that he did it with Bush on the Eminem show? He voiced his opinion on there, and everyone was like, "Wow, perfect, spot on." Trump's done his fair share of shit as well, and I think people just didn't want to hear it because, for some reason, the majority fucking loved him, which I just think is nuts to me.
Yeah.
I just, mate, not to be not to offend anyone. I just think, mate, American politics is nuts, mate. American politics is just
that is
crazy,
fair
mate.
enough. But yeah, I think I'll apologise because I've actually got the chat wrong. It was called Untouchable, not Offended. So yeah, Stephen Curry just helping me out there. So thanks for that. But yeah, so like as a whole, you know, Revival, you know, I don't have any, you know, bad things to say about it. Just that the production could have been better for some of the tracks. But of course, that happened. You know, the over hated that it got online, and then of course, just a few months later, Kamikaze came out as well. But we're not going to dissect too much on Kamikaze because we are recording a show about Kamikaze for our podcast on Sunday. So we're going to skip that. We do have a special guest that will appear on the show as well. So yeah, just look out for that over the next couple of days. So we'll bounce over Kamikaze and go to the more recent albums, which were, well, it just was one album, but it was split into two. It was Music to be Murdered by Side A, and of course Side B. So lads, I'll start off with yourself, Ross. That is coming up for just over 2 years now since that album came out. It's one of my favourite all-time Eminem songs is on that album, and that is Darkness. So Ross, what was your take on, first of all, the surprise release of Music to be Murdered by, and yeah, what did you think of the album?
I think, and I know someone's going to blow my head off when I say this. I've kept quiet around you lads for this reason, but I think Music to be Murdered by doesn't have many skips at all, and that does include Farewell. I personally quite enjoy that song. I thought, I've not heard him do something like this. This is quite cool. And I
That's
know a lot of
fantastic.
people, loads of people around me, a couple of my friends that are in no way, shape, or form an Eminem fan, have got that song in their playlist now because they're like, well, this is what I listen to. This is what I would like, and yeah, he's managed to fit right into it, which I thought was quite good. Music to be Murdered by was a surprise release, and I remember it because I put it on in my car driving to work, and I worked in an office and I was practically on my own, so I Bluetoothed my phone to the little radio we had in there and just rinsed the album all day while I was in the office. So yeah, that was good. That was a good album. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed it.
And yeah, there was a lot of tracks that he recorded through that. He mentioned it on the podcast that because of what happened in 2020 with, you know, the lockdowns and COVID, that he just continued to make more music round about after it was released, and then that's when they had enough tracks to go for the side B. Jamie, what was your thoughts on the side B album as well?
I personally, I don't believe I'm going to say this. I personally prefer side B to side A, but I think they're both fantastic. And I agree with Ross. I think Farewell's a good song. Don't get me wrong. I think Farewell's a good song. I don't think it's warrant a place on the curtain call too. Though that was my only issue with it. I don't think it should go on a greatest hits album. But I think side B is I prefer side B. I think Book of Rhymes is one of my favourite songs he's done this decade. You had the Zeus track, you had Guns Blazing, Alfred's theme, even Black Magic. I think Black Magic's a great song. Tone Deaf, I get the concept of it. I think the rapping on Tone Deaf's very good. The Tone Deaf sort of instrumental is, yeah, I sort of got to black that one out. But what else you got on there? You've got
I've got a little vision on one of the songs from that album, and I've been thinking about this for quite a few months, and the song Black Magic, right, is probably the best Eminem and Skylar Grey collaboration, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But I was thinking, right, like, and no disrespect to Skylar, but could you imagine if they got Adele for that song?
Yeah, that would be insane.
That would have been huge.
And
like,
another good Skylar and M collaboration. I don't, obviously you've probably heard it, but I think "Kill for You." I know this is going completely off topic, but "Kill for You" song they done for Skylar Grey's album, their whole concept of Bonnie and Clyde kind of mischief going on. I think that's a very good song as well. But yeah, I agree, man. Adele, because they was going to get Adele on Walk on Water, wouldn't they? That's who they wanted originally.
that surprised me actually, because they never mentioned that in the poll pod, which I was quite surprised about, because it is common knowledge to a degree that there was a lot of talk about that at the time, but no, they never really covered that on the show.
Yeah, but in a whole, man, Music to be Murdered by, this, I'm going to call it a series. I think it's a really well done album. I feel you got the 3 songs on side A that set it off, and then you've got I like the Ed Sheeran song. I bop to it in my car. It's those kind of nights, and then Darkness again. Darkness is a very powerful song. You got I Will at the end. Everything in between, the one with Anderson .Paak, the one with Don Toliver. I think, yeah, mate, that's that for me personally. If we're not going off of your typical Eminem show, Marshall Mathers LP, if I'm doing a personal list, Music to be Murdered by, side A and B are in my top 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So that was what they were discussing on the show that came out today. So if you have not heard that, it is on Spotify. I think it's on Apple Music as well. The recent show, so quite an interesting read. So we've covered most of the topics that they did discuss. Of course, it was for Curtain Call 2, and it was all the albums that he's produced over the last years. So the next topic we're going to discuss, guys, is the Double XL interview that came out yesterday. So that was a bit of a surprise. What I'll be honest, I've only read a little bit on this, so I don't know if any of you guys have dissected it a little bit more than I have. If you want to take the lead on this one, if possible.
Well, I read, especially what stuck in my mind is what he said about Encore, and if the songs didn't get leaked before the album was released. So you got the We As Americans, Love You More, them kind of songs that made it on the deluxe. They was originally meant to be on the normal CD. So because they got leaked, that's when he started, messing around, because he was saying he was on something like 75 to 80 Vicodin or Valium, whatever it was, a day, which honestly, just the thought of it wants to put me to sleep and topple me over. That's just an insane amount. But that's when the likes of Rain Man and Puke and Ass Like That come out, which I like Rain Man, don't get me wrong, and the annoying songs on Encore, should we say. But if you take them songs out, right, and you replace them with the songs on the deluxe that were meant to be on the original album, and you play that album through, I think Encore is the best album he's done, if that was the case. If you were to take out them songs that he has just put out in quick fire time just to get an album filled of songs. Then you've got the likes of Mockingbird, Toy Soldiers, Never Enough, Evil Deeds. You've got all the Yellow Brick Road. All of these songs, man. That album there, We as Americans, Love You More, Bully. I think he said was meant to be on it as well, but that got leaked.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a complete album there.
So we, like a couple years ago, me and my cousin wrote an article for Eminem.Pro about the leaked tracks and if it, what would have happened if those tracks never leaked. And a lot of us, we regard if the leaks didn't happen, it would have been, it still is a strong Eminem album without a doubt. But yeah, as you say, if the songs like, We as Americans were included officially in the standard edition, then yeah, it definitely would be regarded even better than what it is today. I'm just trying to look at the bit where he was discussing it. So it said, Encore. Encore was obviously the start of, he was on, his addiction was well and truly on at that moment. But he did say, I think he said, I was realising I'm getting addicted to these pills. I was just coming off the Eminem show and 8 Mile soundtrack, and I started recording and had about 7 or 8 songs that were very much in the vein of what I do. But we ended up putting them on a bonus disc because the songs leaked. So he goes on to say, if those hadn't leaked, Encore would have been a much different album. We as Americans, Love You More. A lot of songs ended up on the bonus disc because of the leaks, and that disappointed me. So I had to start over, which felt like a mountain to climb. You climb half the mountain and then all of a sudden you get knocked back down. We as Americans was going to start the album, so that was going to be the first track, followed by Bully. He also went on to say that Evil Deeds was already in place for the album as well. But yeah, he said if it wouldn't have been for those leaks, he says that it might have been up there with the Eminem show as far as caliber.
I agree, man.
Ross, do you agree with that? If those leaked tracks didn't, would it have been regarded up there with it, the Eminem show?
I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's because that was the first album I technically officially owned. I had Curtain Call, but I had Encore, but that was very much an album, and even to this day, there's only probably about 3 or 4 songs I will revisit. So I'm probably quite biased. Again, it's not that I think it's a bad album. I do agree that if the leaks hadn't come out, it probably would have been a much different and better album. Well, much different album. I don't know if I could say better. I don't know if it's. I think it's probably because you can hear the fact that it's not really Eminem. He's off his face, and he said it himself. He was eating 80 Valium a day. Do you know that is a ridiculous amount to keep in your system and learn how to write your own lyrics, deliver your own lyrics, and then have them mastered, recorded, and then listen to it through it again and go, yeah, I'm comfortable releasing that, because you're not the same person you were the day you were making it. So I think it's tricky. I'd like to think that maybe the other songs might have made a difference, but again, I'm probably biased. I only think there's about 3 songs on there I go back and listen to. One of them being the last song, Encore, and then Never Enough and Like Toy Soldiers. Oh no, actually, and Spend Some Time. Those are probably my favourite songs on there.
So he said in the interview that the problem was in the recording process, I was getting more addicted to drugs. I was in more of a goofy mood. So that was the reason for songs like Ass Like That, Big Weenie, Rain Man, all those silly songs which I'm writing in a few fucking seconds. I was just writing high and feeling good about what I was doing because I got fucking 20 Vicodin in me and it felt fun. So the album comes out and it was definitely a wake-up call, a slap in the face, a sobering moment, because I was on a roll and then somehow I got off this roll. I didn't know where to pick things back up, and I was angry at a lot of things, including the songs leaking, because it changed the entire landscape of the album. I still had Like Toy Soldiers and a few that I did feel good about, but I knew in my heart this is not the same quality as the Eminem show. So yeah, it says at the start, if it all stayed together, it could have been as good as that. But then, of course, it goes on to say, because of what happened in those tracks that ended up substituting the leaks, that it didn't have the same quality as the Eminem show. So that was briefly what he was talking about for Encore. There was something that he said that was a bit, I don't know if it was misquoted or I've maybe read it wrong, but he said something. I'll need to try and find it in a couple of minutes. But something about making good music or being a better rapper. But I'll try and find it in a couple of minutes.
Oh yes, he said if he could choose between putting out a good album and being the best rapper, he would choose being the best rapper. Which I understand. That's just the competitive nature. But again, I agree with what he says, and this is how we know he's in a good place in his life. It's true what he says. He doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't need to do anything. If he stopped making music today, he's done it. Do you know what I mean? He's won all the awards. He's got all the money in the world. He's made a legacy for him, until the end of time, and he won't truly be appreciated unfortunately, until he leaves this earth. Like, it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But he makes music, and I've said this before: make music because you want to make music. Do you know what I mean? Don't make music that you think people want to hear. Make it for you. And he says that he still makes music because he's still in love with it. That's all he loves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so he said in the interview, at this point, a lot of the big achievements that could come in your career have already happened to me, so I don't hyper focus on numbers or being on the charts. What I focus on is people like Kendrick Lamar, Jonah Lucas, J. Cole, Big Sean, and watching them and how they're doing their shit, because they're also focused on being the best rappers. It goes on to say, I want to do things that nobody from this point can ever top. Rap to a level that no one else could get to. And again, it's subjective, and every rapper, especially in competitive rap, want to be the best rapper. So I look for the younger generation to push me. I don't have to make albums. I don't have to do anything at this point. It's about wanting to, and that's never changed for me, no matter what level of fame I've gotten to. I still love to rap. It's always been the most important thing to me, and I still have fun in writing. I have fun watching the rappers I mentioned and being like, okay, let me see if I can do something that inside I can top. And every time the best rapper drops an album, it changes the landscape. At least it does for me. And I'm like, I don't need to rap like this, because if I don't, someone's going to come in behind me and probably take over the next couple of years and wash me. So, he knows that he's listening a lot to obviously Kendrick and J. Cole, and he's taking inspiration from them as well, basically. So we've covered most of it. As I said, I've not properly dissected the Double XL interview yet, because it's only really been out for 24 hours. But I think we've covered the basis of what we wanted to cover. I don't know if you guys want to address anything else that's on your mind, or any questions you want to go for.
The only thing I was going to say really briefly is, I think it was going back to the whole Revival thing. I think that half the reason Revival got shit on was because, for me personally, it was the first album that I listened to specifically through Spotify before I actually owned it and listened to it all the way through. So I think a lot of people might have had the freedom for the first time to pick and choose what they wanted to listen to first and not get the context. So that's just what I thought of it anyway. I still remember going out and buying the Mathers LP2 because you kind of had to, but unless you bought it on iTunes. So
yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, we'll start to wrap up the show. We'll just briefly tell, if this is the first time that you're tuning into us, we're on Twitter, and we started these Spaces shows probably nearly a year ago, and they've continued to grow, and so has the audience. So we are now on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube as well. So we've done 4 episodes so far. The first 2 episodes were dedicated to Curtain Call 2. The third episode was about Is This Love from Curtain Call 2, which was, of course, the Relapse era. And our most recent was Relapse, where we discussed, everything from Relapse refilled to the resurrection of the accent. So we've got a new episode dropping next week, and that'll be Kamikaze. And then we also have another episode regarding the diss tracks. that Eminem has done over the years as well. So it's an open plan as well. So if anyone over the next couple of days or in the comment section wants to, recommend or discuss something in particular, then let us know, and we can try and do that in the very near future as well. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. I'd like to thank my hosts, Ross, Blake, and Jamie, and thank you to ePro as well for letting us use the stream through their YouTube channel as well. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and yeah, stay tuned to all our social medias and also Eminem.Pro social medias, and we'll be back for another show for Eminem's 50th, which will be on Monday, October the 17th, and we have, we've got quite a potential few special guests for that show as well, that will happen in due course. Some people that are in Shady Records camp as well, so
Ken
interesting. Ken Kniff, yeah, he's coming.
He's coming.
Right, lads, thank you very much, and
Ciao,
thank you
Dad.
to everyone that's joined us as well. We'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Take care,
Catch
mate.
you.
Take care. See you in a bit, lads.